Secondary axes can make your data go from looking kind of bland or cluttered or hard to see to looking a little more polished or a little more data in one present in one graph. So we're going to do two examples together. This first one is taken from this website here. They walk you step by step through it, so definitely feel free to go visit this website if you want a step-by-step directions on how to do this. And then the second one will be this chart right here, where we've got one set of data that is either plotted as relative detector response or absolute detector response, which if you haven't taken instrumental yet, it will make sense when you get to that class, if you do in fact take that class. But for our sake, we're going to just practice displaying the data whether or not you know what the data means. So for this set of data, we're just going to insert a bar graph. And so that is in fact the exact same data, but it doesn't look quite as pretty, does it? You can't see the trend that's occurring with the blue lines. And so what we want to do is we want to click on the orange, and then under chart design, we can change chart type. And now we want a custom, that's what we've got going on here. We've got a combo graph. But for this one, instead of combo, how about we choose a line graph? And so that's going to make it look like what we see over here. And then we can also choose which one is present on our secondary axes. So the primary axis is the one on the left, and the secondary axis is the one on the right. And so I can choose to put this now on the secondary axes. And why I might do that is, did you see how this blue was kind of hard to see because they both have, they're both scaled to the same scale? But by adding a secondary axis, you're able to kind of zoom in on that blue, which is a lot lower of a scale than the orange. And then I hit OK. And just like that, I've got a secondary graph. And so then you can add all your chart elements, your axes titles, etc. Make it look a little more polished, excuse me. Remove your grid lines, add some axes, that kind of thing. Add some tick marks, and then you're all done. But that's just the basics of how we're going to create these. And so that's just a combo clustered graph, but you could do lots of things. So even while you're playing with these, you can play around with it and just see what combination you think looks best, where you just choose which type you want for each one and just see what it looks like. I really suggest playing around with that. There's some really neat combinations. All right, let's do it again, but let's recreate this graph that you see right here. And so we're going to do the same thing. We're going to insert a graph that has this data on it. Now this graph came from what you see here as a pivot table, which we could talk about at another moment in time. But first off, here's the data that we want. And so we've got one X and two Ys. And I'm going to insert a scatter chart. And so as you can see here, it's really hard to see what the orange is doing. It makes no sense. Alright, so we now have a choice of which one do we want to display on a secondary axis. And so I color-coded these for you. This absolute detector response was in red, and that is what is my secondary axis. And so I need to click on the right one, which is blue. Notice how it moved it over. So now I'm going to actually place that one on my secondary axes. And so now it should look the exact same as this one. And now all you have to do is change your tick marks. So notice that this top one, its marker should be a square, and it was a black square. And then this blue one is a circle, but it is a red circle. And so then you can just play around with these. Built-in circle, let's make it red, and you can also have a border around it. Solid fill, make that red, and then the same thing for this black one. My solid fill needs to be black. And so now we've got it. Now we can just add our error bars in, which you know how to do from prior videos. We can change the color, we can add the axes, make all of those changes that we've made before whenever it's just a simple single graph. But basically the idea here is you make your single graph, and then you click on one of the series, and then you go to change chart type, change it to whatever combination chart type you want, and place a secondary axis on the other.